In today's climate, nothing will make you a more accurate or confident shooter than Crimson Trace laser sighting systems. Get the immediate, decisive advantage of the world's only grip-integrated laser sights today. Shoot better, stay safer. Crimson Trace.
Welcome back to another hour of Tom Gresham's Gun Talk. Now broadcasting on over 200 great radio stations across America. The #1 national voice in defense of your Second Amendment rights. To be on the air with Tom, call us now. 866-825-5486 or 1-TOM-TALK-GUN. Now, here's Tom Gresham.
Well, welcome back. Tom Gresham here. Our number is 866-TALK-GUN. Get you in. Our email, tom@guntalk.com. On Twitter, I'm at GunTalk. And, of course, you can follow us Facebook. Just look for Gun Talk Media over there. Lots of news, a lot of things going on. Of course, we've got our brand new, just released this week. Been working on it for 6 months. Holy cow. Our new smartphone app called Gundealio, where you're going to get the best deals on guns, ammo, optics, all that stuff. Just go to the App Store or Google Play, look for Gundealio, or you go to gundealio.com and it'll tell you all about that. So you're going to like it. I really think you will. It's pretty cool. So talking about, of course, the shooting in South Carolina and the idea that some people have that, gee, the way we make this better is to make sure that even more people are unprepared or unable to protect themselves. Somehow we're going to pass a gun control law that's going to make bad people behave and make murderous people not commit murder and make crazy people not crazy. You know what that is? That's crazy. That's just nuts. Among those, I include the President of the United States. I think the guy is just way out there. You know, he's so far out there, he can't see past his political agenda. And I don't even know that he listens to himself. He says, well, we just have to fix this. Really? That's what you say? We're going to fix this? People have been murdering each other for tens of thousands of years with whatever they could get their hands on. And you're going to fix this? You're going to stop people from murdering other people? Yeah. Well, some people are actually doing things that would help. Some people are actually looking at situations and saying, wait, we have to do something to kind of get the government off of our backs. And one such person joins us right now, Representative Rob Bishop. He is U.S. Congressman from Utah's 1st District. Congressman Bishop, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me on. Glad to talk to you.
Absolutely. Now, you are the chief sponsor of a new bill introduced to protect the Second Amendment, kind of as a result, I guess, of the ATF's attempt to ban the M855 ammo, right?
Yeah, definitely. That spurred it on. I wish to say that was the first effort ATF did to try and restrict Second Amendment rights, but they have been doing that clearly going back to the 1980s. And so it's about time that Congress step in and remove some ambiguous language so we can clarify exactly what we mean when we mean, and not allow the bureaucrats in the executive branch to try and interpret it.
Well, what would this bill do?
Well, specifically, we have now a loophole that's called sporting purposes. That the concept is a general prohibition unless it's used for a sporting purpose, but nowhere is that term defined. And this is what ATF has used repeatedly, not just this administration, but going back several administrations, to try and restrict what kinds of ammunition, what kind of guns people can have, people can use, people can import, saying it's not for a sporting purpose. So since that term is used frequently, but has no definition to it, this bill would change that term from a sporting purpose to a lawful purpose. That if the gun or ammunition is used for a lawful purpose, then it will not be regulated out of existence. And the people have a right to have anything that is used and designed for a lawful purpose. And it's an effort to try and be very specific. To be honest, I think that's what the intent of those who wrote the 1986 law actually had. And this will actually have Congress stepping up and saying, this is exactly what the intent was, this is what the words mean, this is how it should be enforced in the future.
Well, that's huge because people may not understand that a lot of firearms have been blocked from being imported into the U.S., even though they can be made in the U.S., but they couldn't be imported into the U.S. because they say, well, that doesn't fit the sporting purpose definition, when in fact, of course, the Second Amendment has nothing to do with sporting purpose at all.
No, well, sporting is actually used for guns, but you are right. The Second Amendment is basically a right, an individual right of self-defense, and should never be seen as anything less than that. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here.
Well, this would be huge. This would be a massive change. So I guess two questions is, who is jumping on board? Are you getting some support, and who is pushing back?
So far, we have just introduced the bill. We had 54 original co-sponsors, including a Democrat. I expect this to be a bipartisan bill as far as sponsors will be. And there are those, unfortunately, in Congress who don't believe the Second Amendment is indeed an individual right and have a kind of a warped view on it. I'm sure they'll be fighting back on it. I'm sure the administration won't like what we're trying to do. But at the same time, one of the things, there are two areas in which you always get some kind of bipartisan support on the Hill, one of which is firearms. And Republicans and Democrats have realized the Second Amendment is important to people. If you fight against the Second Amendment, you often lose re-election.
Aha, yes. And even the Democrats have figured that out the hard way.
A lot of them have, yes.
Yeah. But some of them have to keep getting that lesson tossed back at them. Now, what about the ATF? Have you heard anything from them about this?
No, and to be honest, I haven't asked because I don't care. This is an effort for Congress to do what Congress is supposed to do, and it's supposed to set what the rules and regulations are and not leave it up to the executive branch to use their fine will at it. I mean, ATF is the group that tried to say that target shooting was not a sport; it was just a pastime. You know, and by that definition, Little League baseball doesn't count as baseball; it's just an activity. So
yeah, I want people to understand what you just said. The ATF did, in fact, say that guns used for competition they don't qualify for the sporting use because competitive shooting is not a sport as far as they were concerned. So they could say, you know what, if we can say that anything is not sporting use, then we can block it.
Exactly. And the effort to take the green tip ammo away was fought by, I think, a letter with 140 different congressmen, senators writing about it, complaining. They backed off. But when they backed off, they said, we're backing off at this time. They never actually admitted they were wrong in moving the rule and regulation in the first place. So this is an effort, I think, for Congress to actually step up and do the right thing ahead of the next crisis that will take place.
For those of us not in D.C. and not really on the ground, don't understand the intricacies, I guess what's the likelihood of this passing? And if it does pass, one would assume, would it be safe to assume that the president would veto it?
You know, first of all, I can't guess and read into someone else's heart and what they will and will not do. However, I don't think this president is going to veto everything that comes to his desk. If this bill passes the House and the Senate, I personally think it has a very good shot at passing both the House and the Senate. It's an issue that is very close to a lot of people's heart. If it gets to the president's desk, I don't think he is going to try and burden his successor in his party's nominee with an anti-gun veto going into an election.
Especially as it gets close to the election. So really what this law says, let me rephrase this. What this law says is any gun that's legal to own can't be banned.
That's right. It does. In my view, it changes the attitude that we have. So right now, the law basically is based on the premise that we'll count everything as illegal and then we'll allow what we want to come in under the sporting purpose exemption. What we're really saying here is you should rechange the thought process and that everything is legal unless there is specific legislation that markets it as illegal. And I think it's an entire mindset adjustment, and I think it's about time we did it.
I agree. The bill is H.R. 2710. H.R. 2710. Now would be a time for people to get on board and contact their congressman. And I guess, is there a similar bill? Has it been introduced in Senate or will be?
Not yet, but I'm sure there will be. But you're right. Usually I don't recommend, call your congressman. This is one of those times I think it would be wise to do so. Ask them to become an original sponsor, or a sponsor, not original sponsor, sponsor, and ask them to support it when it comes up either in committee or on the floor.
Excellent. H.R. 2710. Congressman, I just got to tell you, I like your attitude. I like the way you're thinking about this. If there's anything we can do to help, please feel free to call on us, okay?
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you for having me on, and I'm happy that you're going to be in the Utah market, or you are in the Utah market.
Yes, we are, absolutely, and we like being there. And thank you for everything you're doing, and we're on board. It's H.R. 2710. This is fabulous. This is actually very, very good news. It does. It flips it on its head, where right now they say all guns are illegal unless we say they're okay for sporting purposes. This changes around and say everything's legal unless there's some specific reason to ban it. And that is huge difference. That is massive. Good to hear that. All right, it's Father's Day. Let's talk about your dad. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about mine, but I'm sure you've been shooting with your dad, the fun stuff you've done. Or if you just want to share a story, by all means, 866-TALK-GUN.
The Smith & Wesson Bodyguards. Carry more comfortably, walk more confidently. When it comes to personal protection, nothing beats a Bodyguard. Choose the lightweight, compact, and concealable Bodyguard 380 pistol or the Bodyguard 38 revolver, both with a built-in laser sight. The Smith & Wesson Bodyguards. Carry more comfortably, walk more confidently.
You got your carry permit, and that's good. But you could use more training. Get the DVDs, which have what you need. Springfield Armory presents Concealed Carry 1 and Concealed Carry 2 with Battle Group. Learn specific concealed carry skills from Top Gun fighting trainers. Get trained. Be prepared. This really is life and death. ShopGunTalk.com. That's ShopGunTalk.com.
Brownells has always given you an advantage. With their huge selection of forever guaranteed gun parts, ammunition, shooting accessories, and more. And now, they're offering you the Edge. For just $49.95, Brownells Edge covers your standard shipping and any return shipping cost for 1 year. Brownells Edge members also receive discount expedited shipping and exclusive offers. Get the Edge today by visiting brownells.com/edge.
Crossbreed Holsters is broadening our product selection to serve more of your concealed carry needs. With products handmade in the USA, like the bedside backup, gun belts, and of course our world-famous Super Tuck and Mini Tuck holsters, we understand what works, and we take pride in providing you with a quality product. At Crossbreed Holsters, we live and breathe concealed carry. We make and sell products that we believe in and products that our customers love. To see more, go to crossbreedholsters.com. That's crossbreedholsters.com.
All right, 866-TALK-GUN, Father's Day. How old were you when your dad first took you shooting? 866-TALK-GUN. Josh has joined us out of Arkansas, line 3. Hey, Josh, how are you?
All right. Just was wondering, like on this new or recent shooting in South Carolina, I'm always, every time something like this happens, they always talk about, how many people were killed, how big of a tragedy it was. And it always makes me wonder how many people in a year are saved by guns. Unless I'm looking on local news, I never hear about, those stories on national level on how many lives were saved, by someone, but the right person carrying a gun. And, it's always the point people want to try to make, but no one ever seems to ask that question.
Well, and then you have this Violence Policy Center. It's like a little bitty group out of D.C. that puts out Well, I'll just say they're just bogus, fake studies they do, and they're saying that self-defense use of guns is a myth because more people are killed with guns than are killed are murdered with guns that are killed in justifiable homicides. Of course, ignoring the fact that you can defend yourself without killing somebody. That's the whole point of it. So let's go to your question. What's the ratio? How many people are saved with guns versus being harmed with guns? There have been a whole bunch of different studies on self-defense gun uses. Gary Kleck, who's a criminologist in Florida at Florida State University, was kind of the first guy to really do that. And depending on which study you look at, the numbers go anywhere between 1 million as a low to about 4 million a year of self-defense gun uses in the country. There are, according to the Centers for Disease Control, about 115,000 firearm-related injuries a year. Now, remember that about 15,000 of those are suicides. I think you have to back the suicides out. Those are the successful ones. I don't know how many of the injuries are attempted suicides. Suicides are going to happen regardless of the methodology. We know that. Japan has almost no guns, but they have twice our suicides.
Commit suicide.
Yeah, exactly. So we back those out. So call it 100,000 firearm-related injuries a year. It's probably lower than that, but we'll just use that number. And anywhere between 1 and 4 million self-defense gun uses a year. Now, the anti-gunners like to say, well, those numbers are bogus, and we completely debunked Gary Kleck, except that my favorite study that they did, which they refused to publish, but they had to put it out on the internet. I guess they didn't like what it said. They said, we're going to debunk this, so we're going to use the same methodology. We're going to prove that these numbers are bogus. And so they used the same methodology, and they could not come up with 2 million self-defense gun uses a year. They came up with 3 million. And then the anti-gunners spent the next 2 or 3 pages explaining why their own studies, their own data was bogus, and you couldn't believe their study. It was absolutely hilarious to see them twist themselves in knots when they ran the same study and found more people using guns for self-defense even than Gary Kleck did. So I appreciate the call, sir. There's also, the National Crime Victimization Study. This one's interesting. You will hear this one quoted a bunch. This is kind of getting down to the weeds. It's inside baseball, but I think you will like the details of this. In the National Crime Victimization Study, they survey people. And they always end up coming up with a fairly low number of self-defense uses of guns. Here's why. Now imagine this. Imagine you're being questioned, okay? And the question is, have you been a victim of crime? If you say no, they will skip all the questions about self-defense use of guns. So there will be no record of a self-defense use of guns if you say you were not the victim of a crime. Now, I don't know about you, but if someone does something and I have to pull a gun out and he turns around and runs, I would say I am not the victim of a crime. I'm not a victim. And so I think that they end up with a hugely misshapen and very skewed result. Because if you say you were not the victim of a crime, you never get to tell them, I wasn't the victim of a crime because I used a gun to stop the crime or prevent the crime. So the very structure of the National Crime Victimization Survey guarantees that they will have an artificially and misleading low number on self-defense gun uses. Very interesting stuff. Line 2, Buddy's with us out of Wascom, Texas. Hello, Buddy. You're on Gun Talk.
Hey, Tom, I'm going through a little place right now. It might get a little bit scratchy, but I'm going to be on top of the hill, so just bear with me.
Oh, I will hang in there then. All right, you're cutting in and out. I tell you what, don't go anywhere, buddy. Just stay right there. Guys, just if you would, Michelle, keep talking to Buddy, and as soon as he gets back on that hill, we'll pull him back in here. He wants to talk about his first shooting experience, so we'll get that when he gets to the top of the hill. I don't actually remember the first time that I went shooting. if you don't know, let me explain. A lot of you already know, of course. My dad, his name was Gresham. He was the shooting editor for Sports and Field magazine for 27 years. He was a gun writer, fishing writer, outdoor writer. Then he got into TV, hosted TV shows about guns and shooting and the outdoors. And then, of course, he did the Miller Beer commercials for many years. We always had guns in the house, a lot of guns. Every gun that was brought out, it was sent to us. This was a different time. There were really only 4 big magazines. We called them the Big Three: Field and Stream, Sports and Field, and Outdoor Life, and the American Rifleman. So, yeah, I got it. Buddy dropped off, so if he calls back, we'll get him. Oh, is that Buddy back on line 3? Cool, let's do that. Hey, Buddy, you there?
Hey, Tom, I want to praise you for the good fight, brother. The good fight. And many men and women like you that are standing in the gap for us. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I hear in your tone today as much frustration, if not more, than I've ever heard, though. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of it because, look, if we don't fight this thing, I'm a concealed weapon owner and enjoy that privilege and freedom. I want to just share just a moment, though. When I was probably around 12, I can remember, and my dad, I grew up around guns all my life. I'm 60-something years old now. My dad took me hunting when I was a little kid, and I can remember the first time he turned me loose, out in the woods and let me really squirrel hunt by myself, and he wasn't far from me, but he was watching after me and caring for me. I have enjoyed them all my life. There's nothing wrong with guns. It's the people that do bad things with them.
Well, I mean, we know that's the case. Is that we got millions? No, correct that. We got 100 million people who own guns in the U.S. and very, very few, fewer than 1%, probably less than 1/10 of 1% ever misuse their firearms. But we're going to pass all these gun laws to address the 1/10 of 1% who misbehave, and they're going to continue to misbehave, make no mistake about it. And the 99.9% of the people who don't misbehave are all going to be burdened with the additional paperwork, the controls, the restrictions, the record keeping, the surveillance, the government surveillance. We're trying to get rid of government surveillance, and now they're calling for, except that if you're a gun owner, we want to know who you are, where you go, what you own, when you bought it, where you store it, what kind of lock you use on it. Oh, yeah, we want to have access to your house anytime we want, just to go in and take a look at it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Covering all aspects of gun ownership every week on this fine radio station. You're listening to Gun Talk with Tom Gresham.
All right, back with you. 866-TALK-GUN gets you in here. Just dial 1-TOM-TALK-GUN. Of course, shoot me an email, tom@guntalk.com. And then we have this conversation going on over on Twitter all the time, and you're certainly welcome over there. In fact, I'm going to pull a couple of those comments down in just a second. We'll share some of those. But first, we have Brian's called in from Virginia Beach, Virginia, on line 3. Hello, Brian. You're on Gun Talk.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me on. And first, let me start off by saying Happy Father's Day to you and your staff.
Thank you very much.
A good one.
We're working today, but later on today, we're going to be spending it with the family, so that'll be fun.
Excellent. Now,
how can we help you?
I'm sorry. Apologize for that. I wanted to talk about the gun control debate, which, in light of the recent shooting, is raging pretty strong everywhere across the country. And I wanted to talk about something that you see a lot on the internet and other places where people get into this debate and they get hot with each other. I've heard you talk about it a lot. I just kind of wanted to talk about it and hear you reiterate how we need to maintain our emotional state and approach a conversation like that with poise and calm.
Sure. The whole idea is you don't, and I guess I would start off with this. What's the goal? When you're going to debate somebody, and not necessarily even an anti-gunner, just somebody you know says, I just don't understand why you people think you need a gun or whatever. I don't understand, it may not be somebody who's hardcore anti-gun, but it may. But I think you have to start, Brian, with this in mind. What is the goal? Why am I going to enter into this? And the goal is not to win the debate. And I think if you keep that firmly in mind, then it really helps. The goal is not to force somebody to say they were wrong and you were right. And so many people, especially the online nonsense, it's, I'm going to force you to admit that you're wrong. Well, not going to happen. But if you can engage in a conversation, and don't even think of it as a debate, engage in a conversation that consists, I find it most helpful for it to consist of a lot of questions. Things like, okay, well, if you were in that study group, that prayer study group, and someone started shooting people, would you not want someone to have a gun to shoot this person? What if there was an off-duty police officer who could shoot this person, stop him? Well, yeah, that'd be good. Again, approach it with questions. Well, what if there wasn't an off-duty police officer there, but you know that I shoot all the time and I'm quite competent? Would you feel better if I were there with you and I could shoot this person and maybe he gets 1 or 2, but we could stop him somewhere short of 9? Well, yeah, I guess that would be okay. Well, if I wasn't there and it was just you and these other people, wouldn't you want somebody there, even if you didn't know they had a gun with them, somebody who could pull out a gun and possibly at least have a chance? Wouldn't you want them to have a chance of staying alive, of saving the other people? Because without a gun, it's a guarantee that nobody has a chance. And you kind of work your way in there. If it's, I don't know if you call this the Socratic method, but it's questions. And then they go, well, how would you feel? No, stop. Feel really has nothing to do with this. The only issue is, how can we save lives? Well, yeah, how do we prevent this? And then, of course, I always say, well, it's real simple. You can't. And people go crazy. But we must be able to, because, of course, that would make them. Here's where we go. The core thing to understand about these discussions, and I prefer not to call them debates, is that what a lot of people want is something they don't actually, it's going to sound weird, but it's true. They don't actually want to be safe. They don't actually care if they're safe or if they're safer. They just want to feel safe. And if you could do something that makes them feel safe, even if it changes nothing, and it doesn't make them any more safe, they're okay with that. But if they have to come to grips with the idea that there are truly bad people in the world, and these people may want to hurt them, and may want to kill them, and may want to abduct them, and may want to rape them, and may want to cut their limbs off, and may want to cut pieces of them off and leave them all over the place, and may want to keep them as slaves for years in a box, doing unspeakable things to them, they don't really want to think about that. And so the way I make myself feel better about this is I just won't think about that. And then I'll feel better. So what I would like is for us to pass a law that I could say, oh, we've done something. Isn't that delightful? Now I feel safer. That's where they are. And it doesn't do any good, really, to say, well, that's just silly. That's not a good. Where you need to go is, okay, do you, and I ask the question, do you want to feel safe or do you want to be safe? Real simple. Do you want to feel safe or do you want to be safe? And which they just say, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you can feel safe without changing the situation at all. All you have to do is decide, I'm not going to think about it. Now I feel safe. La-di-da, everything's good. It's all happy, good. Everything's fine. I mean, nothing's changed. The risk is the same. The threat's the same. You're no safer than you were before. But if you want to be safer, then you have to take some sort of action. And if you yourself want to be safer, if you want your family to be safer, well, that's a discussion that we ought to have. I'll tell you what, on the back side here, when we come back, I want to talk to you about some very specific things that you can do to make your family safer. Things you can discuss, things that you can do, and some things that you can purchase that will help you be safer. Our number is 866-TALK-GUN.
on the range. You need a trigger you can trust. For over 60 years, Timney triggers have been trusted by hunters and shooters everywhere. A Timney trigger could mean the difference between a great shot and a miss. Timney triggers are proudly made in the USA and come with a lifetime warranty. To order, go to timneytriggers.com. That's TIMNEY triggers.com.
You got your carry permit, and that's good. But you know you could use more training. Get the DVDs, which have what you need. Springfield Armory presents Concealed Carry 1 and Concealed Carry 2 with Battle Group. Learn specific concealed carry skills from Top Gun fighting trainers. Get trained. Be prepared. This really is life and death. ShopGunTalk.com. That's ShopGunTalk.com.
Ammo can be expensive and hard to find. No problem. Train at home with the Score Time Laser Trainer Target from Laserlight. Use the Trigger Time Laser Pistol and you can train at home with scoring, timing, and shot display. No matter the weather or ammo availability, you can train at home and have fun with this laser training system from Laserlight. To see more, go to laserlight.com. That's laser, LYTE.com.
Hi, I'm Tom Gresham. For more than 40 years, I've been watching an environmental disaster in my backyard, and it actually impacts all sportsmen in America. I'm talking about the massive loss of land on the Louisiana coastline. The U.S. Geological Survey said the swamps and marshes of coastal Louisiana are among the nation's most fragile and valuable wetlands. That land is disappearing. The Mississippi River Delta hosts as many as 10 million ducks and geese every winter. These are birds which migrate northward through the states, all the way to Canada. The wetlands of the Delta support some of America's best fresh and saltwater fishing. And here's the deal. The wetlands of the Mississippi River Delta are disappearing at a rate of 1 football field every hour. 1 football field every hour. Gone. We can reconnect the river with its wetlands and restore the Delta, but we need your help. Please visit vanishingparadise.org. That's vanishingparadise.org.
Are you looking for a place to shoot? The National Shooting Sports Foundation has a great website called wheretoshoot.org. It's the largest database of shooting ranges on the internet. It's also a great resource for shooters where you can find video tips, printable targets, and a lot more. Find it online at wheretoshoot.org. And while you're there, download their free iPhone app. That's wheretoshoot.org.
All right, back with the 866 Talk Gun. Get you in here, or shoot me an email, tom@guntalk.com. Over on Twitter, we have some interesting conversations going on, talking about the president saying these mass murders don't happen in other countries. And people going, really? Here's more examples. Here's more examples. Finland, Norway, Germany, a lot of things going on there. Fairly interesting. It's the conversation just goes on and on. And I said that I have some ideas for how you can help make yourself safer, how you can help make your family safer, things you can say, things you can do, things you can buy. First of all, things you can say. Talk to your family. Ladies, talk to your husbands. What are we going to do if? How are we going to handle it if? What are we going to do when? All right. You're not going to jump out of the car when somebody flips the bird and go try to defend my honor. That's stupid, unnecessary, and extremely dangerous. Stay in your car. Do not defend my honor. I don't need it. I don't want it. It will pee me off, if you will. Okay? Just explain it in those kind of words, all right? What are we going to do if we're at a movie theater and a fight breaks out? What are we going to do in a restaurant when you start hearing a really loud conversation at the table next to us? Maybe nothing. Here's a question for you. When you go into a restaurant and sit down, Do you look around and actually see the people around you, or do you just kind of blindly go in, have a seat, look at the menu, pay no attention to anything like 99% of the people do? Got to ramp up your situational awareness. You have to know what's going on around you. You have to know who is around you. The people in that church had this guy come in and sit down. It's brutally hot outside, and he's wearing a sweater. If there are not alarm bells going off in your head, something's wrong. You don't let this dude sit behind you. And people say, well, he might be offended if I moved. I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to do what it takes to make the situation more tenable, safer, more manageable. Things you can buy. Well, training. A good class, and then another good class, and then another good class. Not just on how to shoot, but how to move, how to shoot from the ground, how to reload your gun with one hand when you have a malfunction, how to shoot from a vehicle, how to get out of a vehicle, how to shoot under a vehicle, how to grab your loved one with one hand and still have your gun in the other hand, pull your loved one behind you the way Secret Service or some kind of, it's called the protectee drill, and you put your body between you, the bad guy, and your loved one while you're backing out, pointing your gun. Maybe you don't have to shoot, maybe you do, but you're ready if you have to. You don't learn this stuff by watching it on TV. You have to go get some training. But you don't have the time, but you don't have the money. Okay, well, let's start easy. Go to my website, shopguntalk.com. We've got DVDs right there for you. Shopguntalk.com. They don't cost a lot of money. You can watch them over and over again. Get Concealed Carry 1, Concealed Carry 2, Fighting with the 1911, and get the First Person Offender series, okay? Those will change your life right there. If you just look at those, if you've never done anything like this before, you go, wow, there's a lot to learn. Yes, there is. But it's fun, and it can keep you alive, and it can save your children, and it can save your mother and your father and your wife and your husband. Is that not motivation enough? Wow. Joe's on line 2 in Shreveport, Louisiana. Hello, Joe. You're on Gun Talk. Oh, he dropped off. He just dropped off. Let's go get Carl in Baton Rouge on line 4. Hey, Carl.
Hi, how are you? I don't know if it was overkill, but when I drove a cab for 10 years in Atlanta, we had a rash of drivers being shot and killed. So I carried 3 weapons with me, one in the trunk and 2 in the cab of the taxi. And your question about if I was involved where someone was shooting randomly at people in the shopping center or a restaurant or something like that, I would hope to God that somebody was in there with a weapon.
Yes, of course. You would hope.
I don't carry anymore. My hands are a little shaky, so I just don't do it anymore. But, yeah, it's...
Well, historically, it's the only way that you stop people like that. Actually, this was kind of a rare one where this guy went in to murder these people. Usually it's a murder-suicide, and they want to get killed. In this case, the guy, did run away. I guess the question is, people say, well, how do you prevent it? Well, my position is you don't. There's no law you can pass that's going to prevent it. You can try to stop it before it gets as bad as it was. In the case of Newtown, we required the teachers to die because we prevented them from having a gun. In Charleston, we required the parishioners to die because we prohibited them by law from having a gun in there. Oh, gun-free zones. Oh, those work real well, don't they? Yeah, it's a place where bad guys go to murder as many people as they can. Tell you what, when we come back, let me contrast 2 different church shootings. Church shootings are not unusual. They're not rare. The idea that somebody would say, I can't even imagine this would happen. Well, you better start imagining it happens. But sometimes with different outcomes. More in just a second. Two different churches. 2 different times people go in to try to kill as many people as they can. You heard about the one this week, Charleston, South Carolina. He succeeded in killing 9 people. The other was, a few years ago, the New Life Church, Colorado Springs. The gunman there planned to try to kill more than 100. He's going to try to run up the body count as hard as he could go, just as far as he could go. He killed a couple of people outside the church, went in. He was loaded for bear. He had a lot of ammo, a lot of firepower, wanted to kill a lot of people. What he did not count on was one woman. One woman, Jeannie Assad. One woman with a gun. One woman with a gun who says, no, not in my church. Not today. You're not doing this today. You're not going to kill my people. Now, it does help that she, at one point in her life, had been a law enforcement officer. But she was not. She was not a cop. She just volunteered to be there to help out with security. And every church should have armed security of parishioners. We'll get to that as another point. So in Charleston, South Carolina, the law says nobody can have a gun there. In Colorado Springs, the New Life Church, Jeannie Assad has her gun. So what does she do? She goes toward the sound of the gunfire and shoots the SOB. Once he's injured, he says, well, that's not going to work. So he kills himself. Works for me. No problem there. Maybe saving hundreds of lives. Question for you. In all of the coverage of the South Carolina shooting this week, did you hear any mention of the New Life Church in Colorado Springs, of the mass murder that was stopped by a woman with a gun? Did you hear any talk about the Trolley Square shooting that was stopped by a man with a gun, a mall shooting? Did you hear any discussion about Joel Myrick, the assistant principal, Pearl, Mississippi, who stopped the shooting because he had a gun? Did you hear any discussion about the Appalachian School of Law shooting where 2 students ran to their cars and got their guns and came back and stopped the shooter because good guys had guns? Did you hear any of this? Probably not. 2 different church shootings, 2 very different outcomes, because in one of them there was one woman who had her pistol and knew what to do with it, and she had the attitude, not here, not today, not in my church, not my friends, not my people. I will not allow this to happen. It's a mindset. The truth of it is, Colonel Dave Grossman laid this out for us, the truth of it is most people are sheep. Just the way it is. Good, bad, indifferent. I'm not meaning that as a pejorative at all. Just most people are sheep. They don't know what's going on around them. They follow the crowd. A fight breaks out. They take video of it. People are getting shot. They take video of it. It's like they're not even part of the world. They're just there. And then there are the sheepdogs. My charge to you is to become one of the sheepdogs. You can make that change. And you make that change by flipping a switch in your head. That's simple as that. And then you got to follow through. You have to make the commitment. Say, okay, I'm going to go get the training. How many times have you heard me talk about training? And how many times have you not heard me say you have to go get a gun? It's not about the gun. It's about the training. It's about the willingness. You got to be willing. You got to know what to do. You have to make the commitment. It's about your mindset. You can save your life. You can save the life of your children. You can save the lives of your family members. You can save the lives of the people around you. You got to make that commitment today. When we come back, we're going to talk to a guy who does that. He changes people and allows them to do that very thing.